Hey, let me ask you a question. Are you leveraging social media in your sales strategy? Or maybe the more important question, is that even possible? Stay tuned. We'll show you how.
Welcome to The Buyer's Mind, where we take a closer look deep inside your customer's decision-making mechanism to reverse engineer the perfect sales presentation. Now, please welcome your host, Jeff Shore.
Hey, welcome everyone once again to The Buyer's Mind, the show where we investigate what's going on in the brains of your prospects that they're considering a purchase decision. We always feel here at The Buyer's Mind that if I can really understand the way that a customer makes a decision, that I can reverse engineer my sales presentation accordingly. We want to know our customers so well that that sale begins to roll out in front of you. I'm your host, Jeff Shore. You can read the full bio in the show notes. You can also hop over to jeffshore.com for all of the resources, our blog posts, our newsletter, and a link to all of the books that we have that might be able to help you on your sales journey. As always, welcome to our show producer, Paul Murphy. Murph, how you doing today?
Hey, Jeff, it's going great.
Let me ask you a question, Murph. What do you think? Social media, is it a legit sales and marketing strategy? And I want you to think about this as a consumer for just a moment. You're looking at your Facebook feed, you're looking at your Twitter feed, whatever it is, and you see somebody who wants to sell you something. What are you thinking?
Well, I actually have a friend who has her own business selling a product, but it gets overwhelming after a while. It's like, where's my friend? I thought I was connecting with my friend. Instead, it becomes just this really big sales pitch from her. And then I'm wondering, okay, why am I friends with you?
So after a while, it's just buy this, buy this, buy this. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. It's like, I'm selling this, buy this, buy this, buy this. It gets to be a little annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into that today with our special guest, Jack Kosakowski, who's the #1 sales guru right now in the world of social selling. We'll pick his brain on that very topic and try and prevent exactly what you're talking about there, Murph. Let me give you our quote of the day. It's from Cami Hoyce, who says, "The first rule of social media is that everything changes all the time. What won't change is the community's desire to network." You see, social media is popular because we have this innate desire to be connected, right? We are created to connect, and I think we are at our best when we are relational, when we are in community with others. So yes, there's a place for social media in our lives and in our business. The question is whether there is a place in sales, and I think there is, but we have to stay with the overriding principle that the primary goal is to connect, not to sell. The goal is engagement, not to pitch. If we get that right, everything else will follow. Well, we want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you in part by our good friends at Home Street Bank, not just our show sponsor. This is my lender. I've used Home Street Bank, and I have to tell you, just a fantastic experience. Everybody that I've ever talked to at Home Street Bank, professional, dependable. They have great rates, great service. If you're a real estate professional listening and you're looking for somebody who will take great care of your clients, you absolutely want to call the good folks at Home Street Bank. Go to homestreetbank.com to learn more. That's homestreetbank.com. So let me give you our tip of the day, and it's consistent with our theme on social selling. Post something useful, but without the ask. See, when I see salespeople post, it's typically, here's my product, ain't it beautiful, would you like to buy it? And this is what Murph was talking about just a moment ago. Instead, post something helpful. A link to an informative article, an announcement about a community event, something that will actually help, and then don't ask for anything. Just give. I think you're going to find your best use of social selling is when you are offering useful, helpful, relevant information and then engaging in the comments without looking in and saying, here it is, I'm going to put my product on the wall of your Facebook and see if I can get you to buy it. If you want to use social media in your sales strategy, use it as a connection tool, as an engagement tool. And we'll see what Jack Kosakowski has to say about that. Well, let's get to our interview. I'm excited to have Jack Kosakowski on with us. Jack is that term guru gets thrown around a lot, but when it comes to the area of social selling, I think it's fair to say that Jack has achieved that status. He is an international speaker, writer, consultant. He's also a straight shooter and a really good guy. I'm proud to call him a friend. Welcome, Jack. How you doing today?
I am doing amazing after that. Can we redo the intro, please?
You didn't like it? What you want to send me something?
No, I'm saying I loved it. I want to hear it again.
Okay, I see. Get your family on the phone first, and we'll try it that way. Jack's calling in today actually from a resort, but not by his choice. What's the story, Jack?
Yeah, living in the desert when it's 120 out and your air conditioning goes, you really just can't be inside. I was just telling you that I went home and I looked at the temperature gauge and it was 96 degrees in my place. So we had to get out. And, some people would say living in a resort is great. Well, it is when it's on, when it's your choice, but
right.
Not so much when it's not.
Absolutely. So Jack, your specialty is social selling, which is really interesting to me because the very term social selling didn't really even exist not that long ago. And so here you are as one of the most prominent voices in the area of social selling. So let's just start by a little bit of definition. My guess is that, like many things that are new, it's also grossly misunderstood. So just let's start by a little definition. What do you mean by social selling?
It's really kind of a tough it's really tough to actually answer this question because there's so many different ways that you can interpret social selling. But I always tell people it's like this, right? We've had agile selling. We've got all kinds of different selling methodologies, right? And they all kind of fit in their place in a little piece of the pie of the sales process or how you sell to your buyers. But, agile selling is not a full strategy, right? You've got to do other things you've got to incorporate other things. And social selling is kind of the same, right? I just look at it as, using social in your sales process, integrating it into your process of getting new business to help you, create strength and influence, one-to-one conversations, just using new communication channels, at the end of the day to drive more opportunities and more revenue.
Some would argue that you can't really truly sell socially. Do you agree with that?
Well, I can tell you that 80% of my business comes to me through social without me asking for anything. So, I don't know if you can interpret that as you can't sell through social. I pretty much get all of my business through social. So I guess I am selling through social, right?
You tend to use the term a multi-communication experience. Would you define that, please?
Yeah, multi-channel communication experience. So, I'm going to use a couple stats here, and I don't want to use any fluffy stats. So we all kind of know this. So on average, Salesforce came out with the stat. They said it takes 6 to 8 touches before you get somebody into a sales conversation or they become a sales qualified lead. There's other channels that have said, hey, it takes up to 13 touches. So what happened is in the traditional model of selling, even in the consumer space, what you see is that it's been phone, email traditionally, or going to a conference. But the thing is, now that you have open communication and people are living on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they're using all these different communication tools, WhatsApp. Now you have so many different mediums to actually communicate with people, and you can communicate with them in a place that they actually feel comfortable and that they live versus, calling and interrupting their day. If you send somebody a message in Messenger and that's where they live, like me, I'm that type of guy, then you're not interrupting my day because I can get back to you at any time. And there's just new ways to communicate with people. And I think, at the end of the day, the word that your podcast has, right? It's about an experience. And the only way that you build trust and you close a deal is you have to give somebody a good communication experience. If you're calling them and you're trying to talk to people on the mediums where they don't feel comfortable or they don't live, you're automatically putting them in a bad experience. So this is understanding your buyer in the digital age. Where do they live? Where do they communicate? Where do they actually want to have a conversation with you at?
We know that consumers do a ton of research online before making a purchase these days. How much of that research is done through social channels? Do we see social stepping up as not just a communication tool, but also a research tool?
There's all kinds of stats. What I always try to tell people is, think about how you buy. If you want to understand how you should be selling, you have to understand how you buy. And if you understand that, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just recently listening to an interview with Daniel Pink. He was interviewing Seth Godin, and this was one of the points that Seth Godin made, was that most salespeople are told to sell in a way that's vastly different from the way that they want to buy. And we could probably apply that on social, because the way that we interact with social media as individuals is oftentimes different than the way that we're told to, quote, sell or market or draw attention to ourselves on social. And I'm guessing that you're going to suggest a more holistic, cohesive, unified approach to our online presence.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do is I work with sales teams to help them integrate social into their traditional sales process. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean you're changing much, right? You're just infusing it, because most VPs of sales, if I ask them, hey, are you selling the way you never buy? Mm-hmm. That's a pretty powerful question. Mm-hmm. So in the digital age, we have to ask ourselves that question. And if we're giving an experience that is an experience that we wouldn't buy from, why would we be doing that to our customers?
So then let me ask you this then. What are some of the biggest mistakes that sales practitioners make when they're using social media? Or maybe put it another way. What makes you go, are you kidding me?
I think it's there's value versus ask. It's kind of a plague in sales, right? So most salespeople want to ask for something before they actually deserve it. And social, unfortunately, the one downfall is that it's people that they kind of guard their social networks to a certain extent. And if you use social to just go out and ask people for something you don't deserve and you're not doing any value on the front end, it could actually hurt you more than it can help you.
I would assume the flip side of that on the best practice is don't even think about the ask. Think about the value. Think about what I can bring to them that's going to be of a benefit. Is there a time to ask, or is it all just provide value?
It's just like anything in sales. Good salespeople, they know when to put on the hard pitch. Other salespeople, they know when to consult. At one time, you have to give enough value where you feel that you've kind of earned the right to ask somebody for something. And most salespeople, not only just in their sales process of the traditional way they sell, they have no real value in it. Salespeople aren't trained what value is. They're not trained. They don't understand it because it doesn't get you instant gratification. So in the digital age, the term value, which can mean different things to different people, there's not really a way that you could define value, which is a tough part, is salespeople have to understand that. And if they don't understand that, then social is going to be really, really tough for them, because it's, there is a long-term strategy involved. It's not something you just get a short-term fix from. Mm-hmm.
What social channels should be used, and how do you determine that? We see different people, are going to espouse different things, and they might look at it and say, well, my product over here is pharmaceuticals, and my people hang out on LinkedIn, and my product is automobiles, and those people hang out on Facebook. Is it that simple, or are we sort of oversimplifying it to say I should use one channel? How do you do it? How do you know which channel you should be using?
Well, you have to look at data. I think the one thing that social gives us that we've never had in sales is visibility into data. So we can actually go in and use tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator to identify our target buyer persona and how many of those are active on LinkedIn, for example. The other thing is we can go into Twitter Advanced Search, and we can look and see how many of our target buyers fit that persona, how many of them are there. Facebook, you can do the same exact things through their Facebook ad platform. It'll tell you exactly how many target buyers you have to engage with, and you have to leverage that data to determine where you spend your time.
Is it truly social selling, or would it be better labeled social marketing?
No, so the difference between social marketing and social selling is social selling is a strategic one-to-one outbound process. So if you're in sales, you have to strategically understand how to have the conversation. It's the new cold call, in other words. Engagement is the new cold call when you think about social media, but it's got to be outbound one-to-one you got to be looking at targeted accounts, targeted buyers. Who am I trying to approach? Here's the problem though, is that there is a marketing function or component to social selling. And traditionally, sales has always said that marketing is marketing and sales is sales. Well, unfortunately, there is a tad bit of marketing going on in sales today, and salespeople just have to be, they have to be armed with the right information. They have to understand how to use insights. They have to understand how to use content, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to proactively get engaged with people. I like to say get visible, valuable, and connected to them before they even know they're ready to buy in most cases. And you have to understand marketing to a certain extent to be able to do that, and maximize your success.
You mentioned that social selling becomes sort of the new version of cold calling, and the replacement, if you will, cold calling is very interesting. As you know, I'm a part of this tribe of sales thinkers that are out there, and there's a huge debate even amongst some of the thought leaders in the area of sales as to the role of cold calling and whether it even has a place anymore. I actually, and I've gotten into a very thorough and actually kind of fun argument with somebody on this. I think cold calling in the traditional way is dead, and it should be dead. The idea of simply just handing somebody a list and saying, here, call all these people. They might have money and they might be interested. I think that this is a waste of time, simply because there are so many ways to be able to connect with people without blindly picking up the phone and calling somebody that you don't know. I'm going to guess that you and I are in the same boat on that idea.
Yeah, so I think that there's just a very big semantics game going on with that. Mm-hmm. Defining what is a cold call. If you define a cold call as I'm going to call somebody who doesn't know I'm calling, well, then, maybe that's a cold call. But I think, it's just plain lazy anymore not to use the different channels and the insights, the data from buyers to kind of at least warm them up and get what I like to say is get visible, valuable. And then when you do get connected, if that's a phone call out of the blue, at least give them something to be prepared for, or at least know a little bit about who you are. They might not know what you do, but I think it's just a big semantics game at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I think you are right that there is the question of whether you're willing to really do what it takes to find the easy answers that are out there. We're talking to a company right now, a potential client, and it's very interesting. Just this morning, I was online and I was researching, and not just researching their website, although that was very interesting for me to be able to chase some of the links and figure out what was going on, but to look at a couple of the principals in the company and to learn their story and to read their LinkedIn profile and to figure out, okay, well, this is really interesting that they, their son is a part of the business and they've got another family member who's part of the business. I'm going to figure that connection over here. They're actually in the Pacific Northwest, and their offices are not far at all from where my daughter lives. There's a point of connection over there. They're a faith-based organization. We have this in common. And I'm just connecting all of these dots all before we have our first sit-down conversation here in a couple of weeks. And I think the thing about it is that I don't see that as manipulation. I see that as just doing my homework and respecting them enough to be well prepared for the conversation so that when we sit down, we can talk the same language rather than just saying, so now who are you? And, this is what gets me, it drives me a little nuts. Maybe you probably tell by the tone of my voice there, Jack, but it drives me a little nuts when salespeople are just waiting for somebody to come to them and say, may I buy your product? And that's not selling.
No, absolutely not. And I think that's the difference between social marketing and social selling, right? Social marketing is you're going to put something out there and you're going to wait for somebody to come to it, right? Mm-hmm. Social selling is I'm going to strategically one-to-one use it as an outbound tool for communication to, create, strengthen, and influence sales conversations. I think where a lot of people go wrong is, whether you're a real estate agent or, anything, any type of B2C play is, how do you stay in front of people, during the sales process, whether that's for an upsell, and let's say you're in real estate and you've sold somebody a house, for example. Well, what do you do? Are you getting connected to them? And moving forward, are you staying in front of them? Because when their family member needs to buy a house, don't let them forget about you. You've got to stay in front of people, leveraging that one-to-one outbound engagement. You can use social marketing in there. I think it should be a well thought out strategy, because we just don't have the time to keep doing the one-to-one stuff, right? But at the same aspect, when you're social marketing, you're trying to go to a whole group of people, and you have to start staying in front of people before, during, and after the sales process. It's just as effective. And I hate when people say, well, it's just for prospecting. Well, you know what? No, it's not actually. It's, for leveraging those insights of somebody you've already sold to see that they're engaged with somebody else that could use your product, and then calling them and saying, hey, I saw you guys had this conversation. Is there any way you could introduce me? There's so many different ways that you can leverage data and insights from the actual individuals that you're trying to sell now. And you could proactively use those insights to personalize your messaging, to personalize your emails, to personalize your phone calls. And if you're not doing that, you're not selling the way that people want to be sold. You're selling the way that you want to sell, and that's just selfish, and that's a bad experience right off the bat.
Is it safe to say that if I wanted to take a look at social marketing, it might just be that awareness? Here's great content that, as I've designed perhaps the generic avatar of my potential buyer that I want to reach, and I've got this content that I think will be very valuable to them. It's advice. It's something that I saw over here online. It's my own blog, whatever it is. But here's content that's out there. I'm going to push it out there, but I want to make it sort of kind of the mass customization. That is that I'm designing it for my avatar. But then when somebody engages in a conversation and say, hey, that's really good, and I think we're going to share it, and I jump in and say, oh, thanks for sharing that. Was there anything that really struck you? And now we start a conversation that we understand a little bit more about the needs. The conversation then morphs into more of a social selling rather than a social marketing. Am I close, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, the engagement piece, right, that comes to you, you have to go to the conversation. I think you see a lot of people that use social, they post something. And I always say, if you watch how I do social media, I'm very strategic about it. What I'm trying to do is I'm always trying to start conversation. Now, I keep the conversation going, but I only spend a lot of time on those people that I see that could be potential business. So, being strategic about that engagement is great. But, there's other ways you got to think about this. If you're in sales today, let's say that you're selling plumbing equipment, or you're selling plumbing products. Well, it's not that hard to think about, okay, I'm going in and I get all these rebuttals, and every time I talk to somebody, they have the same issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write about this, 400 to 600 words. I'm going to write about it because you know what? I'm sick of explaining it. So before I go, when I set that meeting, before I go actually have that call, I'm going to post this on my LinkedIn, this 400 to 600 word post that I came up with that's going to fix a buyer's problem I hear over and over. And then I'm going to send them that link in an email and say, hey, I'm sending the calendar invite, but I wanted you to check out this article. It's something I'm very passionate about. I know a lot of customers have this problem. This is something I want to talk about when I get there. So what you're doing is you're driving people to your LinkedIn profile, even if they're not social. That's great. You don't need a social buyer to get them into your social profile to build that credibility before you get there. But also now you're proactively doing outbound selling using content that is a common theme. So there's so many different ways that you can use it one-to-one. That social marketing, you write a piece of content, you want it to, you want a lot of engagement on it, you want it to, affect a lot of people or fix a lot of people's problems. In social selling, you write content to fix a one-to-one problem, and you use that to drive people to, your profiles to gain credibility, give them a little bit of wisdom, and kind of prep them for the call.
Let me ask you one last question here, Jack. We're just about out of time. This is something about managing brand and our brand identity through social. You have a different take on this in the sense that you've got some rebel in you. I read some of your stuff and follow you, or we've had one-on-one conversations where you're not afraid to call it like it is. You and I have a mutual thorough disgust for manipulative selling and for that sort of old school, do whatever it takes to get the sale type of thing. As we think through your brand identity, you're not afraid to put it out there and say, you know what, this is what I think. If you don't like it, you're probably not my customer anyway. Is it that clean? How much should people be thinking about their online brand? Because I'm worried that people are just getting overly safe, such that we're losing the humanity of our online presence.
I think you really have to thoroughly think about yourself as a brand, no matter what company you're at anymore, because everything that you do on social media is public. So, when you're talking about politics, and you've sold somebody a house or you're about to sell them a house and they're on the opposite side of what you believe, you better believe that you can easily lose, a $10,000 commission because you're so passionate about saying something that's never going to change somebody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that you have to, in the digital age, it's more important now than ever, whether you want to build a personal brand or not, that's fine. I'm not, I think everybody should, you'd be an idiot not to. But at the same aspect, what I say is if you're not going to build a personal brand, you still have to think about yourself as a brand, because everything that you say is going to affect your business one way or the other. And I always want to think strategically about what I'm saying and what I'm doing on social media, because I know that it represents me. Not only that, it represents my company, but you're going to make or break your business, and you probably won't even know you're losing business because you're making those bad decisions. So I think you have to look at yourself as a personal brand, and that's just because we have you can make your social profiles private, you can do all these things, but I'll tell you right now that there's not a lot of safety in that.
Give us one person that everyone should follow online.
Oh, Simon Sinek.
Can't go wrong there. And one great book that has affected your career.
I think everybody should read Not Taught by Jim Keenan.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, my mom is a real estate agent, so I've been trying to get her to do some blogging and listen to some of the things I've said, right, for a long time. She's finally catching on. She just started doing some live streams on Facebook. But the one thing that got her to hire her content marketer for her social media was I sent her Jim Keenan's book, and she said it opened her eyes a whole different way to what's really going on in the world of digital buying and selling. And I think anybody at the B2C level should read that book.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We'll put that in the show notes as well. His name is Jack Kosakowski. You can find him at jackkosakowski.com. Jack, KOSAKOWSKI.com. We'll put that in the show notes. Follow him on social. It is well worth your time. Always insightful, always thoughtful stuff. There's not a lot of kitten videos that are going to show up on Jack's feed. He is worth listening to because he's one of the great thinkers in this space today. He's going to challenge you. And as I said earlier, he's a good guy. I'm proud to call him a friend. Jack, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Well, there you have it, the number one sales guru on social media right now and social selling right now. A couple of key takeaways from my perspective. And the first is the idea of think about how you buy. That's how you should sell. Those were Jack's words directly. Think about how you buy, and that's how you should sell. And we talk about that at Shore Consulting all the time. The idea of reverse engineering your sales presentation according to the way that a buyer buys. And Murph, I know that's something you and I have talked about as well. You would much prefer if a salesperson would sell to you the way that they would want to be sold to.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, it's all about not being intrusive, not being obnoxious. It's actually meeting somebody's need where they're at. That's what a sale should be.
And I loved how Jack took that to another level when he said, just provide value and then provide more value. If we can look at it from that side, everything else is going to follow suit. He said something interesting. He said, the only way you build trust and get attention is to give a good communication experience. And if we can start thinking about social media and social selling as the opportunity to provide an experience rather than just simply pitch something on a wall and hope that it sticks, I think we'll be better off. So one key takeaway that I want to offer to you here is when you are online, when you are using social media, my suggestion here is to think relationship, not sales. Contribute to a relational engagement, not an ask. And if I could look at that by way of wrap up and say that this is not a lot different from other relationships. You give without the expectation to receive, and it changes everything. So I'm just going to challenge you right now. Are you approaching social media palms up or palms down? Palms up says give. Give me. I want you to put something in my hand right now, a sale. Or you're going in palms down, prepared to place something in somebody else's hands. this is the mindset. When I go into that social space, I want to go in palms down. I want to provide information. I want to provide content. I want to provide assistance. I want to provide engagement. I want to provide connection. And if I can go in with that palms down way of thinking, everything else will follow. Well, that's another episode of The Buyer's Mind. Thank you so much for subscribing. We really appreciate that a great deal. And for those of you who are now considering yourself to be long-term fans of The Buyer's Mind, boy, if you would just pause where you are, go to jeffshore.com/podcast, grab that link and post it on your Facebook page or on your Twitter feed right now. That would mean the world to us. We really appreciate it. The podcast is growing dramatically. It's growing all by word of mouth. We're not putting dollars into marketing and buying banner ads. Our podcast is growing because people like you are talking about it, and we want to reach as many people as we can. So there you go, another episode of The Buyer's Mind. You can find everything you need at jeffshore.com. But until next time, go out there, my friends, and change someone's world.